So we're learning Kuntres Acharon. We'll start again, essay 9. For those that have the lessons in Tanya, it's 393. Sorry, essay 8. Oh boy, I'm jumping. Essay 9 is the last one. So it's page 384. Let's read the note together here for a moment. Word had evidently reached the Alter Rebbe that the Hasidim of a certain shul did not permit a worshiper who would daven at length to lead the services, because some individuals there were pressured for time. Sounds familiar, Isra? In this letter of admonition, the Alter Rebbe writes that it is better, listen to this, Chevra, before you fall off your chairs, it is better for this person to even forego participation in the congregational responses of Baruch Hu and Kedusha, if it is absolutely impossible for him to remain longer, then to keep his fellow congregants from praying at length. Why? For deliberate prayer, for Hebrew tefillah, involves life itself, and indeed prolongs one's life by cutting short the prayers of others. This busy individual tampers with their very lives. Very, very harsh language in his own words, but you'll see it soon in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe also explains that meditation during prayer, and he emphasizes during prayer, with the goal of revealing the love of Hashem that is concealed within the heart of every Yid, constitutes an obligation explicit in the Torah, and you shall love the Hashem your God. So in other words, Moshe, the idea of meditation, people say, oh, it's Kabbalah, it's Chassidus. No, the Alter Rebbe here is saying it's based on a pasuk in the Torah that we say twice a day, and if you don't meditate, you don't reflect, you can't develop a feeling when you think about someone or something, and you become and you understand it, then you want it. Either you want to be close to it, or you understand how no good it is for you, or in a situation where there's reverence, so you stay far away from it. That's yira. That's yira. Let's go. So this is an igeres. It's really it's really a letter, and it's a letter about tefillah, so it really belongs more in igeres hakodesh, but somehow it's here at the end of Kuntres Acharon. This is a combination of two different parts of verses. Okay, one is a Shmuel and one is, I think, Mishlei, whatever. But it means Loi Teva. I have heard with foreboding. I've heard something. It's not good what I heard. Vatirkas bitni. And I'm deeply grieved by it. That's putting it mildly. Literally, Hillel Vatirkas bitni. Bitni means stomach. I'm angered in my stomach. I'm very, very upset about what I heard. That's what the Alter Rebbe writes. Asher, Am Hashem, the people of Hashem, God's people, Mavirim of Neateva, Ha'ish, Hachofetz B'chayim. They, Mavirim, you know that in Chazal, one of the words used for someone that is sent over or goes over to the it's called Over El Hateva. You've seen that, over. Now, over really means past, right? But it also has the meaning of going over El Hateva. Okay? So then it also has the meaning of being removed. So the Alter Rebbe uses it here in the context of Mavirim Milfnei Hateva. We remove the person before the ark. Teva here a reference to the not the bima, the podium, the amud, we call the word amud. Hoyish hachofetz b'chayim. There's a man who desires life, v'arichas yamim, and he desires long life, shall call anshe shlemeinu of all anash. Now you see, so this from here we don't know the real history of this letter. Moshe, We do not know to which community this was written to. To which shul was it in Ukraine? Was it in Belarus? Was it in White Russia? Was it here? Was it Russia? We don't know. But what we do know from these words is that it was written to Kol Anshe Shlomenu. And that's a reference to Anash. Aleph Nun Shin. Anshe Shlomenu. So it's written obviously to a Chabad shul somewhere in that area. And the Alter Rebbe says he heard that the person who goes over to the Yomid, yes. What?
I'm sorry, I have to figure out. When we see the term at this stage, Anash.
Yes.
Is specific. I mean, is that term only?
No. Anash is a general term for first. It's a general term for Yiddishkeit. Anshe Shlomenu, men of peace.
Right.
Then it was adopted by Hasidim, all Hasidim, not just Lubavitcher Hasidim. That they started to call themselves what we call in English the brotherhood, the fraternity. Anshe Shlomenu would be the vernacular of a fraternity. Okay. So it's the Hasidic fraternity, Slonim, Boston, Chabad, Breslev, whatever. Now in some Kehillas, they use the word klois referring to the shul, and they have other words to identify Hasidic brothership and fraternity. Okay? In Chabad, we use primarily the word Anash. But it's not, if you're asking me, is it just a Chabad word? The answer is no. Is it used heavily in Chabad? Yes, as the Balatanya has used it numerous times in his Sefer Tanya, including right here as well. Yes.
So I think what I'm asking, I'm asking a couple things. The first thing I'm asking is today, the only people that I hear use Anash is Chabad. I don't hear Anash used in any other circles.
Well, ask Isser in Boston. Do they use the word Anash? No. He says no. Go ahead. So you're right.
Okay. So that's my first question.
Well, I mean, one second. What's your question? What is your question?
Question is, do other Hasidic groups use specifically that term?
No, it's not used. No, pretty much not. No, pretty much not. In other words, like this, to tell you that it's absolutely not used, I don't think that's the case. It's not as frequent and as often as it's used in Lubavitch. Okay. Number two.
Yeah. So my second question is, in the history of this word, going back to this time where Hasidim was the Hasidic world at the time of the Alter Rebbe, as where there's so many distinctive groups of different Hasidim, or was it a little bit more mixed? And so was this term, because of that, was this term perhaps used maybe more fluidly amongst different people?
Okay. It seems to me that around this period, the Alter Rebbe's time, there were only several Hasidic groups that were prominent and known. And the proof that I have to that, the position that I have to that is in the interrogation papers, which we have in Russian. And they once gave it out here at an event. And later it was translated into Hebrew, but you can actually see it online, I believe. The actual interrogation of the Alter Rebbe when he was in jail by the Russian government in Russia. So one of the things that they interrogate the Alter Rebbe is about davening long and davening, and they speak about davening behispilus, davening with tremendous emotionalism. And how do they? And they're talking to the Alter Rebbe, but they don't know the difference, the nuances between Karlin, Stalin, and Chabad. Okay? So they identify and they call Hasidim the happy ones, And you know which Hasidus they identify? Karlin Stolin. And they're interrogating the Baal Tanya about his Hasidus. But they didn't really know the difference. So it seems to me that at that time, the Russian government of the KGB, and all that, I think in their mind there was like one group, Hasidim, the happy ones, the jumpy ones, the lively ones, the noisemakers, right? They didn't. So that's number one, because they don't say, well, your type of Hasidus, Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Chabad, and they don't do that. They lump him into the overall sense of Hasidic fervor and enthusiasm of what they perceived as Hasidism. That's number one. You hear my position? Is it clear? Number two, of course there were multiple groups. For example, one of the other people that was incarcerated at the same period as the Alter Rebbe's incarceration, and I've told you this in the past, was the holy Lechovitcher, Reb Noach of Lechovitch, I believe Reb Noach, who's the father figure of the Slonemer Hasidim. Another person was Reb Lev Yitzchak Berditchever, the Berditchever. So now, you put yourself into Berditchev or wherever he was at the time, or Lechovitch, right? Did they have Hasidim? Yes. How large or small, I can't tell you, but I don't think it was, very, very large, but they had Hasidim. So there were groups, there were Hasidic Rebbes, because remember, it's the students of the Maggid. The Maggid, is 20 years before. He passes on in 1772. Here we're talking about 1798, 1800, 1802. So there were already, other Hasidic groups. But I still have this feeling, and I haven't done a study, so it's not, I can't back it, that there were several, 2, 3, 4 that were known, and the rest were, small change compared as far as people's knowledge of their Hasidic movement and things like that. But were there other Hasidic movements? For sure. There's no question about it. No question about it. Not as much as came later, because when the Chayza of Lublin, he had, the Kutzker, you understand? So that's when it started to populate more Hasidic Rebbes, more Rebbes. But you go a generation before, less Rebbes. You go a generation before, less Rebbes. Because the Baal Shem Tov leaves his son Reb Tzvi. Reb Tzvi doesn't want the post, so it's taken over by the Maggid. The Maggid has he has Reb Mendel of Vitebsk, but he goes to Eretz Yisrael with Rabbi Kalisker, right, Tveria and all that. They leave the Baal Tanya here. Rabbi Aaron Kalin is in Bashenkovitz, and they want to kill him, so he runs away to Karlin, I think, right? So, and then we have the Chernobyl Twersky dynasty for Menachem Chernobler. Then we have his son Reb Motla Chernobler. It seems like there was a lull there. That's my estimation. So it's hard to give you, a precise, date and year, but as a general statement, that's what I would say. So the word Anash, Hillel, 1 second. So the word Anash, maybe in those days it was used by the Lechadzevich Chassidim and the Karliner Chassidim. Because remember, it was an identification name for our fraternity, our group. So each Hasidic group had their group. I mean, and that is clear that there were differences, whether from the Streimel to the Payas, and there were minor differences, but there were differences in their dress and in behavior, particular in davening. The emotionalism versus the non-emotionalism within davening. Slonim till today davens like we spoke about the other day, very calmly and not observably emotional, right? Slonim Chasidim, right? You have Vishnitzer Chasidim, which come from Chaim Kosover from the early 1800s. Very emotional in their davening and very beautiful singing. Chabad has its style. Breslov has its style. Yes, Hillel.
Occurred to me as you're talking, is there any Hasidus that sort of traces itself back to Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, like that became an active Hasidic group?
No, the answer is no. The answer is no. I mean,
did he not leave any descendants?
No, of course. He Geras HaKodesh Chav Zayin that we learn for the Rebbe's yard site in the Geras HaKodesh, which speaks about the neshama after it passes on. It says in the beginning, check it out in the heading. It was written to Rebbe Levi Yitzchak for the passing of his son, Reb Meir. But I believe, again, we have to check, we have to look it up. I think he had other children too. For some reason, I don't know, but there was no hemshich to Berditchever Chassidus. Now this could be, again, these things have been, discussed both by academics and some others. It could be that, he didn't want to have another, a continuation of his Chassidus, because he maybe didn't view himself as a Chassidus. He's a tzaddik. I mean, the way he speaks about the Balatanya and some others, a few others, I mean, there's a certain, it seems, subservience, and I don't know, I get the feeling he wasn't interested in that, So there were some tzaddikim, Talmidei HaMagid, who wanted to develop a dynasty in a sense, and some that didn't. Now today, we're not talking about what's going on today. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry puts up a sign on his little steeple and says, I am the such and such Rebbe because I come from the Berditchever, I come from him and there. I'm not talking about that. And God bless them. The Rebbe, again, positive. You start a Hasidus, you got people, and Kol HaKavod. The Rebbe always said, Yarech Yomim HaMamlachtoi. May your kingship, rulership continue for eternity. The Rebbe didn't say it. And who are you, chap? Where did you pop out of? What did you eat and do when you were young? No. You're a Rebbe, you're a rabbi, you're a Rav, you're a Gadol today. Gewaldig. But in truth, going back to the origins, as Moshe pointed out, to look at the origins, there weren't many. No, I mean, and there are others. There are others that were Talmidei Baal Shem Tov. Let's say the Michal Zlotchever. I saw myself in the Siddur of the Baal Shem Tov, the copy, the page in the Rebbe's library. It's online too. You can look it up. The names of the Baal Shem Tov daven for, had in mind his Talmidim, is a page in the Siddur, a blank page with handwritten names. And I saw the name Michal Ben Chana. I forget that, and that's the Michal Zlotchever. That was a big tzaddik. No, but he didn't have any. At the time, he didn't have any Hasidim and make a Hasid. You know what I'm saying? He had Talmidim. Yeah. I'm sure in Zlotchev where he was. Even if he wasn't a Rav in the shul, but people saw such a person, they gravitated around him. They hung out with him, and I'm sure they were makabel for him. So he had Talmidim. He had probably even Mikusharim. People were very bound to him, but they didn't have any rebel-like ambitions in their consciousness, and that's why after several generations it ended. It ended until the post-Holocaust phenomenon where great-great-grandchildren, or by marriage or direct, whatever, want to revive the name. They want to revive the Hasidus. They want to revive the shtetl. So you have even here, and I'm sure you have in Eretz Yisrael, rabbis, people who name a shul after a great-grandfather or someone like that, and who lived in a certain city, and he was a Rav, and he was a Tayr Yid, and he was a Talmud Chacham. So they want to give a memory to that, so they'll name their shul. Like we have here in Borough Park, Halberstam, who's from the Halberstam family, the Bavaria, right? But his congregation is called Rudnik. Why? Because going back 100, 150 years, there was a great person who came from the city of Rudnik, probably in Galicia somewhere, and he was known at the time as a Rav, a Talmud Chochem, and so they want to keep it up. So they put the name on the shul, Beis Medrash Rudnik. Okay? Yes, Hillel.
My mother always told me the Stretner of Toronto, the Stretner Rebbe of Toronto had 4 sons, and none of them became Rebbes. None of them had a Rebbista after, but one of them was called the Philadelphia in the family. And my mother always said that they called him that because his train once had a stopover in Philadelphia.
So 1 second. So he never lived in Philadelphia?
No, he never lived there.
Okay. I mean, the Bostoner Rebbe lived in Boston. He became known as the Bostoner Rebbe. There was a lifer, I think, from the Natvarna who lived, I think, in Pittsburgh. They called him was that the Pittsburgher? Yeah. Yes. What? Yes. So, someone who came from a Hasidic dynasty who landed and lived in a community for a while, and he started to share some of the Hasidism with the people there. They was identified by that city.
I think my mother's intent was saying it was kind of a joke in the family.
Well, I can hear the joke. If you don't live in Philadelphia, you make a stop there by the train, you become known as the Philadelphia. Like I said, I don't want to start up with Rebbes. I don't want to start up with this whole, they're all. I know they're better than me, so let's just leave it. Anyway, Moshe, did we clarify for you this whole parsha?
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it very much.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, let's continue the text. So the Alter Rebbe says he's not happy that the worshippers in this shul want to remove someone who's davening slower, and he wishes to bring life, as he's going to say in a moment. You see, he calls it in the shul. Mikdash Mat means a miniature temple, which is a reference to a synagogue of Anshe Shlomeinu, again of Anash. So this is the Alter Rebbe says this causes me a lot of anguish. Next page, 385. And it brings the Chazal, K'may Merazal, as the sages say, Shleisha Dvorim Marichim Yomov Shel Odom. 3 things, they prolong the days of man. V'echad Mahem, and one of the 3 that the sages mention is Hamayrech B'tfilosei, someone who prolongs their worship. Chavre, do you know what another of the 3 are? Anyone? Someone who prolongs his time in the lavatory, in the bathroom, to alleviate himself before davening. It's a Gemara. And the Satmar Rav, Reb Yoel Teitelbaum, would spend an extensive amount of time every day in the bathroom. I heard this from one of his Gaboyim. And in Satmar, they made a big issue of it, that showed on his holiness. I know it sounds a little funny and strange, but it is a Gemara. Because the Gemara, Alter brings the Gemara here and regarding davening at length, right? Prolonging your davening. You should just know that the Gemara says it about the same thing, about emptying the waste in your body before you daven. But of course, everything with balance and measure. But it's known that the Satmar Rav took it to, in a sense, to an extreme. I mean, you're talking about an hour or 2. That was my understanding. A long time in the lavatory. So let's go on. Mamish, what Issa was speaking about before, it sounds like. And even someone who's pressured for time, who finds it ultimately impossible to wait for the congregation response of Kedusha, he can't wait for the repetition of the Shmoneh Esrei. Halei toiv loi. It is better for him. Shalei l'shmei Kedusha Baruch Hu. You have to run, even if you miss Kedusha Baruch Hu. Milated l'chayim shalachveitzim b'chayim. Wow. From tampering with the lives of those who desire life by davening longer. You individual who have to run to work, or you have to run to a call, the Torah exonerates you because you're an oinus. Very important to just to think about this, Chavre. That because the excuse in the shuls is this is a worker's minyan. And a worker's minyan, this rabbi said 14 minutes, this rabbi said 17 minutes, and I told you Shem Shabbos they do 13 minutes. And the Alter Rebbe is saying, you have to run. If you have to, if you're taka and oinus, Rachmani Patre. Rachmani Patre, Torah exonerates you from Kedusha and Baruch Hu. Now, I wouldn't want to be the one to be koveya for myself such a thing. I'm not that great to do that. If I have to do it, it's done. But I'm not going with the excuse, hey Hashem, Einis Patre. I'm not holding that card up. But the Alter Rebbe does say it. The Alter Rebbe could say it. And the Alter Rebbe says it, if you truly Yisr, Einis Patre. And in your situation, you're a physician, you have to go. What's the question? Life and death, pikuach nefesh, whatever. I'm saying certain situations. It's on the contrary. The Rebbe always, the Rebbe always quoted regarding giving back territory, Shin Chof Tes in Hilchos Shabbos, that it says, even if the enemy is coming out iske kash v'teven for matters of straw, they're not coming to kill you. They're coming to grab some straw, some food, and steal it or take it, and they're coming, but they're going into your gvul, into your boundary. You have to get up on Shabbos and kill them. If you think they're going to, continue on to God forbid to kill, pretty much what happened October 7th. I mean, they lechatchila went to kill, right? But imagine we're just going in to get a little food. We're starving. Meanwhile, they take out their bombs and things, and they're going to make more problems, right? So the halacha says you have to get up from shul on Shabbos and go out and kill them. And the halacha, and the Rebbe always said that if you don't do that, when it says in Shulchan Aruch, you're going against the Torah. So in a sense over here too, I'm making a comparison with just a caveat that doesn't say it, but it's my own thinking. That to exonerate yourself because you have to go. So I'm saying about the hill about Isser, if he has to run, and he doesn't, he's in violation of Torah. He has an obligation to save a life, like we all do, but in his field. So if he doesn't save the life because he's being holy, I gotta wait for Baruch and Kedusha, you're a fool. You're going against the Torah. You have to get up and save the life. What do you want to say, Isser?
I wanted to say that Baruch Hashem, we all live in places where there are many places to daven and many minyanim. And I think that somebody who goes to a worker's minyan and wants to daven like he's in Shomer Emunah should go to Rabbi Wolfson's.
Well, Rabbi Wolfson's is an extreme, you see. Rabbi Wolfson's is a 3 to 3.5 hour davening every day. That's already an extreme. We're not talking about that. I don't believe the Alter Rebbe is talking about. He's talking about someone who wants to get the words out, like.
In the Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he says that if you're short of minyan, you should wait for half an hour before you shabbat, because that's the amount of time it takes to say Psukkah de Zimra.
Wow.
Half an hour for Psukkah de Zimra.
Wow. Wow. You know, look, in today's practical world, in the world of Moshe's, Gaboyes in the shuls, you have to balance. It's you have to balance. On one hand, you have to teach these type of things. On the other hand, you have to take into consideration what's going on, because the main thing is not to have machlokes. Machlokes is worse than anything else. It's worse than this. You can close
You also
up.
want to have a minyan. And if you're going to have a davening that's so long that people aren't going to come, it's a balance.
Yeah. Okay. But to me, that is what you have to always remember. No machlokes. Minimize the machlokes. Calm the people down. And it can be done. I know, and this one fellow, Talmud Chacham, great guy, Baal Tzedakah, he gets nervous when you say Tachnun. He gets so nervous. So, and in Shem Shabbos, there Moshe Metzger, the Gabbai, he is a stickler for Tachnun. I mean, he's fought with all the, Hungarians, Polish, Hasidim, who many of them don't say Tachnun at Mincha. He doesn't let them get away with it. And everyone knows that if you skip Tachnun at Mincha, and Moshe is going to find out, he is going to give it to you that you never will do it again. And he says in Shulchan Aruch, it says, you say Tachnun, that's it. So he's made it clear to this minyan factory that here we say Tachnun at Mincha. You don't want, like Isser said, go down the road to Satmar. Don't say Tachnun. No problem. It's a half a block down. You don't have to daven here. You can daven over there if you don't want to say you daven here. So, you need to, and if you do it with a smile, and you do it with, and I see the other day, it was about Tefillah, and he finished Manesser, a Hasidic guy, and he's about to say Kaddish, and I guess maybe he heard, he turns around, he says, and I popped up, and I'm the Lubavitcher, right? I'm not from their crowd over there, I said, Tachnun, because I know what Moshe Metzger wants. And I don't want this guy to get chastised by Moshe when he comes in, because Moshe wasn't there at the time, and he's going to give it to him. So I'm trying to help him avoid the busha. So I said Tachnun, and he said Tachnun. Everyone else said Tachnun. So it's become kind of normalized. You have once in a while, a radical that will do tooth and nail and run out of shul. I don't want to come back here ever again because you said Tachnun at Mincha. Ay, Chavre, seid gesund. We'll see everyone tomorrow with Hashem. Take care.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Good day. Good day.